Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm your host, Katie Augustyn. So I'm the founder of the Transformation Center based in Westport, Connecticut. And at the center, we have a variety of activities. We have workshops, we have classes, we have trainings, we have sound baths, we have Kirtan in the backyard, which you're going to hear about in a few minutes, all sorts of offerings. And that's in addition to the coaching sessions that I do for individuals, the coaching and the shamanic healing. So you can go on our website, which is transformationcenterct, that's for Connecticut.com. And there's a calendar of events and lots of information there. So please visit our website for more information. And so you'll find there that everything we do is really based on helping you get to the core of who you are and be yourself and, find that spiritual connection, let go of all your limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. So it's all for you. So looking forward to meeting you. All right. And here we are in Conscious Conversations, and I'm so excited. My guest tonight is Miriam Zernis. Welcome to the show, Miriam.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for this beautiful invitation to share.
Yeah, I'm really glad you were able to do it today. And I've known Miriam for a little while, not that long, but I'm going to read a little bit about her, before we get started, so the audience can see your background a little bit. All right. So Miriam Zernis, whose spiritual name is Sita. And that is she's part of Sita's Light. She founded Sita's Light, and you're going to learn all about that pretty soon, which is a group. And she's been joyfully guiding all who are drawn to devotional chanting and sacred music. Really, that's what it's about, into that deep and heart-opening experience. And I have to say, I've had the personal experience of it a couple of times, and really, it's like nothing else that I've ever experienced. And she's done this all around the world, really, not only here in Connecticut, but in New York, in Europe, Canada, Costa Rica. She's been doing this since 2007. That's a long time. Yeah. And in Sita's Light, she is joined by several talented world-class musicians who are awesome. And they're also on the path of raising the vibration of the planet and leading participants into a state of peace, bliss, and love. Yes, and that's really what it's about.
It is, truly.
Yeah, it truly is. And in addition to that, Miriam is also an internationally certified yoga master, Reiki master, holistic health coach, and freelance health and wellness writer. Yeah, I guess that feeds into your other background because she stepped onto the Bhakti yoga path in 2006 after retiring from a 21-year career as an ABC News writer and editor. That's amazing. Yeah,
in many ways.
Does it seem like two different lifetimes?
It does. And even when I was at ABC, the last few years were very much, I was a split personality.
Yeah.
Because I had already stepped onto the yoga path at that point. Right. But being in that career was just everything that I needed. I needed financial support. Mm-hmm. I needed to find myself and my own confidence after, as we young people, we flounder around a little bit. Yeah. But I had a wonderful friend who told me that there would be some job openings. And I went and got that job and managed to just climb the ladder slowly but surely, somewhat to the top, being the senior editor at some point in the newsroom. And I always knew it wasn't going to be the end. That wasn't going to be where I was going to stay for the rest of my life. Yeah. And of course, thankfully I didn't, because so many changes have occurred in the world. But I knew I needed to have more of a path of service of a different kind. Mm. And when I was there, I was in service. I thought always about what we presented and whether or not it was appropriate to add, human interest stories to the news and all of that, because sometimes it was a little too hard and a bit harsh, as you know. So, but then I was encouraged continually by several different people to try yoga. And I was always like, yoga? Okay. It's a little boring, maybe. I don't know if that's for me.
Yeah.
As I won't call it a coincidence, I will call it a huge synchronicity that I moved along that way, including my husband, who married a newswoman and is now married to a yogi. And it's a little shocking, I'm sure, for him, But he was a bit of a catalyst because he also encouraged a more peaceful, introspective life from the one I was running around, just like a bit of a crazy news lady.
It seems like a little fast-paced life. That's how I imagine it.
Yeah, very fast-paced, lots of hours. I was commuting from Connecticut to New York City every day, pretty much.
So you didn't live in the city, okay.
I lived in the city initially, and then a few years after I got married, which was almost 30 years ago, the commute became from Connecticut, which was, by car. I worked many late nights and had a lot of hours. A lot of times I was like coming and going at different morning and evening and middle of the night times. Oh, wow. So, but I knew that could not be sustained forever. And I slowly made a transition that was...
Yeah, so it was slow transition?
It was slow. It was probably over a period of 10 years or so, where I started doing yoga practice. Then I started to slowly look at teacher's training. Then I slowly started to say, well, what do I need to do next? And how do I get out of here? Which is what I started to do with the training in holistic health and, just trying to find some footing for myself. And I knew nothing about what might happen. Right. And then I laid there many nights staring at the ceiling in the dark, wondering, how am I going to do this? How am I going to step out of this role and just enter the world as another person, another look at myself, another, who am I? And it was hard to let go of the identity of being a news person, but I think I did it pretty well after a while. I enjoyed it after a while. Initially, I was a little freaked out because I had decided to go to India. I decided to retire from the news and go to India. And literally just a week after I retired, to all the parties and the thank yous and all of that, I got on a plane by myself and went to India to study more yoga at an ashram.
Oh, good for you.
And the ashram life was for me. And I spent, about 6 weeks, 7 weeks in India, taking the training and also just experiencing it all. And it was for me. It was something very unusual. It's like past life. I don't know if it was past life or what, but I felt quite comfortable doing that. And so then I came back and it was like, wow, this is my new life.
Wow, I bet that helped tremendously, though, to have that time alone in a way. I mean, even though you're in ashram, you're not with your family. And to have that pause, it's almost like a pause to see what, the way it feels to me, Miriam, is like you created this space inside of you, and you were seeing like what's going to come, what's going to come to fruition, what's going to grow.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I made that space, even with fear, because I believe, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Well, it can be a catalyst.
Sure. And I had a little fear, but I was also really clear that I needed to start over somehow. And many of us do need to start over somehow. Not everybody, but a lot of us do. And if we really, really go inside and check in and say, what's happening here? This isn't really right for me anymore. Right. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And of course, India was just so magical and it was life-changing. It was really life-changing in so many ways. The people that I met, and I was literally by myself. I didn't really know anybody. When I got to the ashram, I knew of the teachers I would be studying with, but as far as friends or anybody else, no, it was just so far away.
Right.
And it was really not a time of cell phones or really a lot of connection. So I found myself waiting at the internet, line sometimes, and taking into account, whether I was going to eat dinner or stand in the line to get online and send a message to my husband or anything at all. So it was felt very remote.
Yeah.
And I felt that was the right thing for me. I'm kind of like a little bit of a purist also. So ashram life really spoke to me because it was the purity of the teachings of yoga, living the life, living with my teachers. And, we had to wear a uniform, and it was strict, but for all good reasons, and it wasn't just going to certify you overnight. You needed to work for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot more to it than we might imagine.
Yeah. And the schedule was very tight, and they took attendance. Imagine you're going to yoga school, and it's like, well, my husband used to say, "You're going to yoga boot camp."
Well,
Pretty much.
like you said, for a reason, kind of it gets you down to your essence.
Yeah,
I would
totally.
think. Yeah.
You wear a uniform so that you're just, one of the group. And the scheduling keeps you going, and if you can't get into the scheduling, it could be tough. But I enjoyed the structure.
Yeah.
And I did my best. It was not always like the best days, but it was always tough. But it was all good. In the end, I felt really like I did the right
got what
thing.
you needed out of it, and then you came back and just started your own yoga studio. How did that work?
When I got back, so I had an opportunity to purchase a share in a yoga studio in my area. And I did that. And I spent some time teaching and owning the studio. But the business of yoga didn't speak to me. And I wondered, what was that all about? And I think what happened was I needed more of a spiritual path and not a business path at that point.
Yeah.
Perhaps because of how I was trained, I don't know, but I never felt 100% business. I own a yoga studio. I'm in the scheduling. We're doing these workshops. And
You just wanted to do the practice and teach
people.
Yeah.
My partners were awesome, though. They were the loveliest people. I made great friends with them, still in touch with them, most of them to this day.
Right.
But it was something more calling me. There was something more calling me.
Yeah.
And so in came the music somehow.
Yeah. So at that point, that's when the music started?
Pretty much. I mean, when I got back, funny thing is, I had already purchased my instrument, which is the harmonium.
Yeah.
Spoke to me for a very long time from going to yoga classes and some visits to the ashram in New York. There's one in upstate New York. And I thought, gee, I love the sound of this instrument. But I didn't have any time to play it or learn it. So I just kept it sort of, let's see, one day I'll be able to take it out and play it. And eventually push came to shove because I was hearing it from the closet saying, hello, come on over and let's play, And I went to one event for a teacher's meeting, a reunion of some kind. And I remember showing up and the person who opened the door said, hey, where's your harmonium? We want you to lead some music or chanting. I said, oh, I don't play that harmonium yet. So they were a little confused.
Right.
But I thought, all right. I said, okay, they'll just have to have me. I had a tambourine, a drum, so I led some of the music. And then a couple of days after that event, one of the lovely people who was at the event, who also was into this music, into this bhakti yoga practice of kirtan and sacred music, called me up and left a beautiful message saying, all right, time to get the harmonium out and get going. So with her encouragement, I slowly began to show up with the harmonium and learned.
That's great.
And learned to be in groups of people. I was very nervous initially. I thought, what am I doing? This is crazy. What am I doing?
Yeah.
But people enjoyed it. And I thought, if I can do something that brings people happiness and peace and love, even for small periods of time, maybe this is my path now. Maybe this is where I'm supposed to be.
Okay, so you sort of gradually stumbled onto it. It sounds like a little bit, not sure, but it felt right. And that's the thing, I think, that we don't always acknowledge, and I think that some people think that when you're on the spiritual path, you know exactly what you're doing and you have this goal or something. It doesn't feel that way, though, does it?
No.
It doesn't to me.
I don't think I had a goal at that time, except that I knew that what I was doing was very pure. It was stuff some of the music and the chanting and the words, of course in Sanskrit mostly, I had learned at the ashram time. I had learned during my teacher's training programs. It was all so awesome to me, and I thought, can I take it from that environment and bring it out in community?
Right.
And
yeah,
not a lot of people were doing it, except, of course, big names that were traveling around, the Krishna Das and Deva Miten, and all of these people I'm very familiar with and have been with them, and they've been a huge inspiration. But my idea was my community. Would people come if I said, let's gather to sing together, to chant together? And slowly but surely, people did show up.
That's what you started.
And so that's why I'm still here doing it. Sometimes it's a bigger group, sometimes it's a smaller group. My idea is that it's a beautiful community builder. It does bring people out also helps people open their heart, open their voices, find something within themselves that maybe they didn't know how to bring out. And that's always been my goal.
Yeah, and I don't think there's really anything else quite like it in our area that I've come across, and I remember when Lisa Pack moved to Connecticut and she asked her, where's the Kirtan? And I'm like, I don't even really know what you're talking about, because I wasn't familiar with it.
Yeah.
So can you tell our audience a little bit about what Kirtan is?
Sure. So Kirtan is known in India and in the ashrams and in temples, so you go way back in time. Devotional singing, chanting, mantras, spiritual songs that all have some energetic connection to deities, of course. So I'm not a Hindu, but I do definitely appreciate the ritual and the joy of Sanskrit. To me, just brings something very unique, not unlike Latin, Hebrew, these old world languages where we might have gone to a church in the past and listened to Gregorian chant, or you go to a synagogue and you hear the cantor in Hebrew. It's similar in that high vibration energy. Yeah. So Kirtan is basically you come together, and we call it satsang, which means like-minded people gathering for spiritual growth, connection, right? And that's kind of the groups that I like to bring together, are those people who are interested in that. And also people who like to sing, because sometimes just liking to sing brings you into a place of really opening your heart and your mind and brings you more joy than just basic singing, although singers that come are like, wow, I can freely do this and enjoy without the performance aspect.
Yes.
And that's the thing. We don't go for performance necessarily. Kirtan is not about performance, so to speak, although there are many people out there performing it, but I don't consider it performing.
It didn't feel that way to me. It felt like, even though you and the other musicians are top notch, really, my husband came to the one in the backyard and he was very, very impressed with all of the music, but it feels like you're more part of the group, like we're all in it together. And I guess that's what you mean by the community.
Yes, I think
of it.
What I like to say is we are facilitating an experience. That means we're in it with you.
Yes, yeah.
Somebody needs to lead something, right? When they come together in a group, just like a speaker might get up and say something. But in general, once we're all eyes closed, focused on the music and the mantras or the songs, we're all the same. And that's really what's true about all of our lives. We're all the same. We're all one.
Yeah.
And that's the other feeling that I love to have, is that oneness feeling of all of us coming together in that space and time to just share this high vibration. Yeah. And I think it resonates somehow. And if you hold it for a little while, I believe that it can constantly, in some ways for me, creates that peace that we all look for, even in the chaotic world that we live in. People come. So I think that Kirtan has become more and more popular in the West. Nothing new in India. In fact, when I started, this is a quick little story, when I first began to do all of this, I was invited to the home of a wonderful Indian couple in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And that's in their living room, and this is very common in India, in their living room we would hold satsang with 15 people or so sitting in the living room on the floor, playing, singing, and then sharing some food afterwards, which the woman who owned the home. And that was the most beautiful experience, really, of what it's all about. Bring that community in, enjoy each other, and then at the end, spend time together. Have a cup of tea and talk. And, that really was such a joy for me. And that was my start. So I actually honed my harmonium playing skills, and also just being less nervous about sitting in front of everybody. And, because that wasn't totally me. Although you might say I was running a newsroom for a long time, but that also wasn't me.
Well, right. That's sort of behind the scenes too.
Yeah.
Even though you were managing people, you weren't on the camera yourself.
Right. So so it took me a little while, and then I realized I'm not doing this for myself mostly anyway. This is some divine intervention. That's often what I felt, there was some form of divine intervention that brought me into the spaces and the places, and that the people would come. And I would never really plan. I still don't plan too much, except space-wise, how many people fit. I do that.
Right.
But initially, I was just like, it was very much a big open house. Come if you can.
Yeah.
Come join us.
Yeah.
And when people did show up and people enjoyed, and a little bit of a following happened here in Connecticut especially, because I always thought maybe, there's a couple of groups over in New York, let them take care of New York, and I'll come over to Connecticut and see what I can do to help community grow here through this. And I think that's what happened was now is an offshoot, a lot of sound healing going on. Similar in part, because we need peace. We all need release from our stress and all the craziness. So whether you're singing with our group, meditating, because Kirtan is also, the beauty of it is, as you're going through, it's repetition. So most people would say, boy, they're just repeating the same thing over and over again. But eventually, after about 10 or 15 minutes of that, your mind quiets down.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as soon as the music ends and there's a quiet pause, it's peace of meditation.
Yeah, and just drop into your heart.
Drop right into your heart.
Yeah. I love chanting. Even though I really, story I tell myself is I can't carry a tune, I can't sing, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. For Kirtan, it really doesn't matter. And I don't have music training or anything. I just have what I was told, that I have like relative pitch. So I can find the tune and I can play due to that. I have no training on the harmonium either. So it's just kind of like.
Yeah, well, it seems very natural. I mean, you do have a beautiful voice, I think. I mean, I think just anybody would say that, but it's a very natural voice. It doesn't feel theatrical or trained or anything like that, which is perfect for this, honestly.
Yeah, I had people tell me maybe you should get some Indian lessons, Indian music lessons and all that. And at that point I thought, oh sure, I would honor that tradition. Why not?
Yeah.
But I was already off and running and people asking me to come and offer events, and I thought, I'm doing it already, and maybe I'm doing the right thing, and maybe people are appreciating it the way it is. This is me, just kind of raw and me, just who I am. And I try to always bring a little bit, an element of inspiration. So, usually, and I love welcoming new people. When new people come to an event, I just love new people because they don't really know what to expect. And I hope that, they don't expect anything, that they drop all expectations and see how it works out for them.
Yeah, which is how it was the first time I went to, when you did the one up at Sticks and Stones Farm in Newtown. You still go there to do events. Yeah. And I thought that was great. It seemed like there were a lot of regulars there, but there were some new people. Yeah,
when new people come, I always, not to out them or anything, I always say, who has never done this? And if a couple of hands go up, I'm like, yes, wonderful, thank you for coming.
Right.
Because new people to bigger events, or maybe some of the big names, a little intimidating because the energy gets so big, the vibration gets so high, and if you're not used to it, it can throw people off.
Yeah.
So I love when people that are new come, and I can, and if my group is their first experience.
Yes, that's perfect.
It's really lovely. And I always encourage people, go seek out more. Go seek out more. I'm not the only person doing this. Go find more.
Right, but you do a lot around here.
Yeah, I settled to do what I could in the Connecticut, like mostly Fairfield and a little bit up north in Connecticut, because community, and I enjoy seeing same faces sometimes, along with the new faces.
Yeah, so you have a nice following.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you're going to be up at the Hummingbird Healing Center here in Westport, right?
Yeah, in Westport, October 22nd.
Oh, great.
We'll be at the Hummingbird Healing Center, and we'll also be back up at Sticks and Stones on September 23rd. Actually, that's coming up.
Okay.
And something that is very powerful, I've teamed up with a couple of times with this gentleman named Dan Gallagher, who leads Dances of Universal Peace. So that's a whole other practice, but it goes really well with what we do, because that's simple Sufi dancing with chanting. So we chant and open up the energy, and then I give it over to Dan, and he leads the dances, and it's magic. It's truly beautiful.
That sounds
It's a very special process, and Dan and I didn't really know each other until I was looking for someone who could lead, and I invited him, and he was just like all of us on a spiritual path, sure, let me offer. Let me come and have that offering come from me, and that's a beautiful thing. So along with the other musicians I play with, we all have that kind of sense. It's like, this is opening up community, bringing spirituality in a different way, helping people feel peace. And sometimes people come and they don't chant at all. They lay down and take all the energy in. And I love when I see somebody who's maybe had either a stressful day or week or month or life, and all they need is to just lay down.
To receive.
And to receive. And that's beautiful also.
Yeah, which is like more of a stereotypical sound bath where you're just receiving and maybe letting go at the same time.
And releasing. I mean, I think it's for everybody. You know, I think that everybody has a voice, like you're saying, you're not sure if you, so it doesn't matter. You know, I hear all kinds of beautiful voices coming my way. They all sound beautiful to me, you know, and they say when you're singing to God, everything's beautiful. You sound great.
Yeah, right.
You know, you don't have to worry.
It's really your intention.
Exactly.
That drives it.
Exactly.
Well, who are the other musicians that you work with? Excuse me. You want to just mention that?
Sure. Right now I'm working with some amazing musicians. So I've worked in the past with, it kind of rotates, like some come in and they stay for a while and there's maybe a change of something and then they move on and shift. But I'm currently working with an incredible guitarist named Andrew, and he's, you know, and everybody's on my website for the bios. But Andrew comes with a very special and unique look at the music. He's been with me for a few years now. He plays a 12-string guitar, which I'm so in love with. Wow. It adds a very beautiful vibration to the whole time. And he also plays a Rav drum, which is the sort of like a steel drum you might have seen.
Yes, yes.
And I have him open often like that to set the tone of our time together. Because I like to do that, prepare people a little bit for the experience. So we might do a little instrumental with that. And then there's Lydia Smith.
Yes.
And she's a powerhouse on percussion, drum therapist, highly trained, lovely woman. And she is, actually, I think she's a Westport native. She lives nearby. And she came in when one other drummer left and moved. And so, you know, people just come, and if they gravitate towards what I'm doing, they stay. And then I have the huge honor of also playing with this man named Parmeek Russell Tubbs. And he is multi-instrumentalist, pretty well known around the world probably. And he came to play once about 3 years ago with us, and he comes whenever he's free. He also does,
he is amazing, yes.
He does, usually plays flutes. And he's delightful, and he adds another element. So sometimes it could be just, Kirtan can be just a drummer and my harmonium and I. Or it can expand, and I've had as many as 8 musicians playing different types of percussion, flutes, violins, didgeridoos, you know, a long list of amazing people. So the group kind of expands and shrinks depending on who's coming and wants to be there. You know?
I think that's the beautiful thing about it is there's no set format or anything. You can
not really. I don't plan too much, and I love to welcome the musicians. What I always tell them is, do your thing. Do your thing, because I have no right, if they're improvising, I don't feel I ever have a right to dictate and say anything. I want them to drop into their heart and do their thing from that space, just where I am as well. And when they do that well, just about every time, and we all are together, the experience just gets better for the participants and the people who've come to hang out with us.
I can definitely attest to that. That's how it works. And it's very It's like nothing else I've experienced. So
Yeah.
I would say come and try it for yourself if you haven't tried it before. Thank you so much for being here, Miriam.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our audience, and thank you to the Westport Library Verso Studio for hosting us. Namaste.